The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thanks everybody for joining. We'll get started here in just a minute. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to welcome you to this webinar on OneDrive for Business. My name is Danny Ryan. I'm a co-founder and VP of Business Development for ThreeWill. Today's presenter is Tommy Ryan, and he's going to share some of his experiences and his sort of top 10 tips with you about OneDrive for Business. Real quickly, before we get started, I'll email out the PowerPoint and a video of this. This is being recorded so that you should see this in a day or two. I'll send out an email to everybody who's attended so you can share the video with others who weren't able to make the webinar. Also, if you've got questions as they come up, feel free to ask questions. I'll be monitoring that. We'll only answer easy questions though, so just note that. With that, I think we'll go ahead and get started here, and I'll let Tommy take it away. Go ahead, Tommy.
Thanks, Danny. Well, welcome everybody. Really appreciate you taking time to join me as we share some of the things about OneDrive that are valuable for your organization. And we've seen a lot of things that we like about it, and I thought I'd share kind of those top 10 things that we like about OneDrive for Business. So the agenda that we'll have this afternoon is I'm going to give you a very brief overview of ThreeWill, just in case you're new to our company, and then jump right into an overview of OneDrive for Business. There's some kind of terms and terminology and some things that can be confusing about OneDrive that I'd like to clarify before we go into the top 10. I'll cover that top 10, and with the time we have left, we'll show some of these things in action and show you how easy it is to basically leverage the things that you have with you with OneDrive for Business. All right. So background on ThreeWill. ThreeWill, we've been around since 2001. We're a Microsoft Gold partner. Our competency areas, heavy in portals and collaboration, app dev, and mobile type solutions. We've been doing Sharepoint based solutions since the 2006-2007 timeframe, and we're so excited about what we're doing today in things like Azure and Office 365, along with Sharepoint on-prem. And we continually make sure that our customers believe that we're providing good services, and we were ranked back in May 2014 as one of the top 5 Microsoft partners. And kind of what's key to us is our methodology. It's the core to how we're successful with our clients. We use an agile methodology that helps us give the control that our customers like to see. And this is just a sprinkling of some of the enterprise customers. We also have ISVs that we service, but here's a good sprinkling of really healthy companies that are getting value out of Sharepoint that we're helping. And then our passion, what we really get excited about, what gets us up in the morning is about a mantra we have is work together better. And we think it's something that we can do and we can change in enterprises by leveraging Microsoft's collaboration stack. And that is today SharePoint, Azure, and Office 365. And we love building collaborative apps. And then just one last thing, this is what we call the ThreeWill promise, the 3 Cs, that we think is integral to how we work with businesses that need our services, and that's control, choice, and commitment. Control comes through our process, our agile process. We put a lot of control in our customers' hands, but we guide that process and make sure there's discipline to be able to stay on top of, the iron triangle of projects. And we find agile helps us do that very well. And then choice, that also falls into the agile methodology. We typically are in 2-week sprint cycles when we're doing agile, and we're delivering working software that allows our customers to make decisions every 2 weeks of, is that enough, or do we want to continue on? And our customers love that. It's a way for them to really feel that they're in control. And then commitment, and this is something we really, deep down in our heart, we feel like we take on our customers' challenges like their own. And a tagline that we have at ThreeWill is choose to succeed. And we're about that and really care about being successful with our customers. So thanks for giving me a little bit of time to give you that ThreeWill overview. And let's jump into OneDrive. And I wanted to start off by going through what I thought was very confusing in the beginning when I put my arms around OneDrive. So people that are experienced with SharePoint in the past, you had your My Sites and you had a document library in your My Sites, and all of a sudden you don't see the My Sites when you go to SharePoint 2013 or Office 365. You see this thing called OneDrive. And also you see OneDrive out there as a consumer product. And they're really two different things. There's a lot of convergence, but for the most part, OneDrive for Business is something totally separate than the consumer product. So be careful with things that you download. You might be downloading a sync client for OneDrive versus OneDrive for Business. And so when you get that distinction, then when you look at it within the environment of Office 365 or SharePoint 2013, OneDrive is both a synchronization service and it's your personal file storage. So your download a sync client, and that sync client will be a part of that OneDrive architecture. And I've got a slide to show you to help visualize that better. And when you have OneDrive in place, you can synchronize not only your personal file storage, but also your content that's on SharePoint. So let's take a peek at the architecture. This kind of shows you the components of it. You have a sync client that you install, and we're talking about different platforms, but let's say for Windows in particular, you install that sync client. You go through some setup for that. Pretty simple, just authenticating with who you are, so it can reach out to those files on your behalf. And then you'll find within your Windows Explorer, you'll see some special folders that pop up. You'll see a folder that that's going to be, it could be called different things. The slide's a little bit dated, but you might see OneDrive dash the name of your company or the name of your tenant. And then you're also going to see another folder eventually that says SharePoint. If you ever synchronize with a team site, content that's in a shared set of storage between people in your company, then you're going to see a special folder called SharePoint. And I'll show that to you a little bit later when we go into some of the demos. And that sync content is going to your, quote, My Site, your OneDrive location. It can sync with that, and it can sync with any of the SharePoint Online document libraries. So that's the basic architecture. When we were putting our arms around this, one of the things that we struggle with at ThreeWill is where do you put things? And I think most people that work with SharePoint, have that same kind of challenge. And so that challenge, gets a little bit bigger when you're thinking about OneDrive for Business, because there's a lot of nice bells and whistles that I'm going to talk to you about. And you might say, well, why don't I put everything in OneDrive for Business? Well, this is the way I look at this. It's not necessarily the only way that you can look at it, but when I look at OneDrive for Business, I look at it as it's replacing, my network share. So maybe I have a P drive, that I had a file share in my organization. Well, that's a perfect example of what you would want to have up on OneDrive. That content that might be just pertaining to things that you care about, but you want to make sure that they're safely stored and they're backed up. So that's a good place to think about OneDrive. Also, content that you don't know exactly where it should go, but it's company content. You want to make sure it's backed up, you're taking advantage of all the features of a document library in SharePoint, but you don't know where it needs to go yet. It doesn't have a home. So kind of that work in process is a great place for OneDrive content. And then just think about things that you usually put on your desktop or you have in your documents folder. Those things that if they're company related and others need to get access to that or eventually need to collaborate with you on that information, you really should be putting that into your OneDrive folder through your the File Explorer interface versus putting it, say, on your desktop. So that's the view of where things go for OneDrive. And then sites, it's really team-based content. We've tried to put content in OneDrive that's team-based collaborative content, and it can be challenging. It's not organized the way you would like to see it organized. So and we kind of say, well, where do I go? Do I go to John's folder? Do I go to Danny's folder to go find this content? It's much better to have, say, a sales site and a sales document library to go find the latest sales artifact. So that team-based content goes into sites in SharePoint. Things that really need to be controlled by the organization because it's key intellectual property. That probably doesn't sit in your own personal OneDrive. That probably should be in a site. And then, as your SharePoint matures, you'll start seeing things that need to be organized and maybe metadata and other things that help you, find the content later. A lot of that work is usually set up in document libraries and SharePoint sites. So that for discoverability, it's great to put it in SharePoint sites. That's a quick kind of overview of OneDrive before us just give you, kind of a bullet list of top 10, and hopefully that gives you a good sense of what OneDrive is and how it fits. So when you're looking at OneDrive, one of the really nice benefits of doing OneDrive is the ability to have these documents offline. And OneDrive allows you to bring these documents offline without really having to think about it. I mean, you're going to set up the sync, you're going to decide which libraries you want to synchronize, and after you do that, as you're working with your documents through your File Explorer, they get up to SharePoint, and you've got a copy that you can take with you. And so if you're disconnected and you don't have access to the internet, you've got those documents. And also, if people are adding documents to the document library, you might not know there's a new document you need for that sales call that you have. That comes with you. It gets synchronized with you without you really having to do anything. So that's a real nice benefit of using OneDrive for Business. Syncing across devices. So it's just amazing the work that Microsoft has put in to go across devices, the support that they have for, say, iPhone and iPads and Android and Windows Phone and even Xbox. You're seeing this unified way of looking at the world, devices and services, and they're really kicking it up when it comes to devices. So, if you have your Windows Phone, your iPhone, and you're out, at a meeting, you've got access to that. You can get to that content. collaboration. I mean, this is something that comes for free as you have something in a document library that's a SharePoint document library. If you look at OneDrive, it looks and smells and feels just like a document library. And you'll see the underpinnings. You've got all that same control that you see. You've got the ability to do workflows, version control, check-in, check-out. And the collaboration features are just amazing. If you've ever done multi-user kind of collaboration where you open up a document, someone else is in that document, maybe on Word Online, they're making edits and you've got to open up in Word. You can see how many people are in that document. It points out areas that have been changed. Extremely powerful. Instead of pulling these documents, as individual documents, making changes and trying to merge those back together at a later date, that's a pain. The ability to work together on content is very strong, and you get that benefit within OneDrive. And I'll show a couple things in demos around collaboration. So unified platform. So if you follow OneDrive, there's different sync clients out there, and some are better than others. If you were early on for OneDrive for Business, you probably got frustrated with certain files that would get stuck and not synchronized. And I won't go into all the detail of why those challenges are there, but Microsoft's putting the effort towards really their vision is one sync engine, and then that's on the roadmap. That's something that they're promising we'll see soon, and that's exciting to know that no matter where you go, it feels the same, that you have that unified sync engine. And my number 5, integrated platform. So you've probably experienced this if you're in an organization that wants to share with other organizations. You've probably done things like put it in Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. You use one of these SaaS solutions to share this content. Well, now OneDrive gives you that capability. I mean, it kind of displaces the need to kind of fracture your organization in terms of what technologies that you're dropping files up to. So you don't have these corporate key documents in different systems that you might not know what is being done with that content and what their policies are around privacy and just retaining that content. And when you're using OneDrive for Business as your way to sync or share files and store files, now that experience is integrated with the rest of the Office 365 suite, which I'm going to show demos of that, and it makes it so easy to easily get to that content and be aware that that content's there, and you're not having to go log into another system to go get content that you might be sharing external to your organization. So that integrated platform of Office 365 and OneDrive for Business being one of those services, within that platform. All right, document security. That's the number 6. I think this is something that people, kind of take for granted that, their content is secure, but they're not really sure, how secure that content is. And OneDrive for Business, I think, has some good practices within its library. When you upload documents, it's not shared with anyone. You have to explicitly decide to share it with people, and you can easily determine who has access to what content, so if something is being exposed, external to your organization or to other people in your company. And then there's a special folder in there that you can say, everyone within my organization, I want to give them rights to that. And you can put things into that special folder. Or you can create your own folder that has those permissions. You can, just like everything in SharePoint, you've got inheritance of permissioning. So if you create your own folder, you can decide who has permissions to that folder, and everything that goes into that folder will have the same permissions, unless you explicitly override it. All right, number 7, harvest knowledge. I think one of the things that we don't realize that happens in companies is people can easily keep content sitting on their desktop. They leave the organization. People will, format the drive, put it back into the pool of laptops, and meanwhile we've lost some content because it never went up into any enterprise store. So if you get into that practice of, instead of putting things in my documents folder or putting it on my desktop, and I'm putting it inside of OneDrive or SharePoint, then that content stays with the company. And as changes are being made, I don't have to remember to copy it back up. It's automatically synchronizing back up. And also, this, I was talking about this before. You have all your files in one place, either in OneDrive or SharePoint. And if you're using other SaaS like Dropbox, then you have to deal with, well, I've got this document, in multiple public clouds versus one. This number 8, I have in, air quotes, unlimited space. So if you go and look at the specs, you get a terabyte of space, and sometimes you hear it termed as unlimited space. And I actually had a dialogue with Microsoft, and I said, well, I hear you have unlimited space, and the comment was, well, 1 terabyte is practically unlimited for most users. So maybe there is a day that there is truly unlimited, but today it's a terabyte. I haven't found anyone to date that's complained about not having enough space in their OneDrive. You think about it, if you're going to be synchronizing that, you probably don't have a terabyte of stuff you want to be synchronized. And this is a really nice benefit. When you have Office 365, you've got a certain amount of space that's available to you when you create sites and store content. So this augments that space. You have quite a bit of space that you can store documents. So it's great to have so much space available to you. And then number 9, one source of truth. And maybe this is unique to ThreeWill, but maybe you've seen file names very similar to this one. And I made this one up, but it's actually fairly tame compared to some of the file names I've seen over time when we've got out of practice of putting things, in a shared repository and sending links to them versus copies of the file. We all kind of, can get lazy once in a while and not do that, and it starts, creating a mess like this. So, and OneDrive is making that easier and easier, and SharePoint in general, to share content and be able to send that email with a link, and I'll show you how that's easily done. Also, I'm going to show you with OWA, Outlook Web Access, when you're sharing content, you can share links to it, or you can even share something from your file system and have it automatically uploaded to OneDrive and send a link. Pretty nice. And again, if you have this file up in one place and everybody is editing this, and if they edit it together, it gets automatically merged in one file, and you're not dealing with multiple files. You always have, the right version of the document. You're not having to search through your emails and your desktop to say, do I have the latest version? And number 10 is collaborate externally. I think this is something that is quite powerful. We use, and this is, similar to, collaborating with document content externally to your organization. If you have an Office, 365 tenant, you can invite people external to your organization. Our project sites are available to our clients to come in and get to the documents. And you'll see in a demo that I do, you can even email things to people outside your organization and give them a link back to your OneDrive. And that way you can, have one source of truth between you and your client as you're working on the document together, so they can benefit from that collaboration with you. Okay, so a little time check. We're about 25 minutes in. That gives us plenty of time to show a few things. It's fairly simple, so I'm not going to have 30 minutes of things that I'm going to show you, but I'll show you a couple nice things within. Hold on one second. All right. So let me start by showing you the file system and point out what I was talking about before. So here is OneDrive-ThreeWill, so that's the name of our tenant. And with OneDrive, this is my personal OneDrive. This is my terabyte of storage that I have up in the cloud. And here's my shared with everyone folder, and then I have a couple other folders in here. If I want, I can create a new folder. I don't have to go into OneDrive to do that. No. And maybe this is, design documents. And that, you see that little checkbox. It means it synced it up with my OneDrive, and we'll look at that in a minute. And then this is everything that is syncing from SharePoint sites. And so this is a people site collection and a document library called Documents. So that content is out there, and I can go and look at that content. And I can add as many sites as I want. And there are some limitations. There is a number of files limitation, and that limitation is different depending on if it's a SharePoint site or your own personal OneDrive repository. All right, so that's what it looks like in your file system. And these demos, I'm using Office 365, and I've got a kind of a dummy account here that I've been collaborating with myself, so it might look a little confusing because I'm talking to myself. But I'm here, I'm Elon Musk, and I want to talk about Teslas. And if I go to this little icon you saw that I clicked on, that was my OneDrive. I can launch that from my app launcher. So there's that same OneDrive. I just pinned it up to my suite bar at the top. But now I'm inside of OneDrive. Here's that design documents folder that I created from my desktop that automatically synced up here into my OneDrive. And then, I navigate this just like I'd navigate anything in SharePoint, driving down into the folders, looking at the content. Let's say I'm going to go into this folder, and I'm going to click on this. This is my next battery concept that I have for my Tesla, and I can see a preview of that. Notice it's only shared with me. I can decide to share that. If I share that, that brings me to a dialogue, and maybe I want to share this with Tommy. And this will, send this out to myself or to Tommy, and a copy to Elon. I've got some options here. Maybe I want to share it, but I don't need to send him an email. In this case, I want to send an email. I can decide what are the permissions for this. So I can say, well, Tommy can view this, but maybe he can't change that document, but I want him to have access to it. Or click on the share. And now, if you notice the sharing, this one has a lock, and that lock kind of indicates it's only shared with me. This indicates I've shared this with some other people. Well, how do I determine who I've shared it with? I can click on the ellipsis here. I can see I'm shared with Tommy Ryan. There's other ways to look at that. I can go and click here, and it brings me to that list of everyone I've shared it with. And I can even change those permissions and determine if I want to change that or add more people that can see this document. So this is, your own personal OneDrive. Really nice aspect of this is it's really a launch point to get to all document content within SharePoint. So here I can look at shared with me. This is actually the presentation that we're going over today. I shared it from my OneDrive with Elon, so it would show up here so I could get access to it when I logged in as Elon. I can see content that I follow, so this is looking at some suggested content and content I can follow. This site folders. This will take you out of OneDrive. This is showing you SharePoint sites, and I happen to follow the people site, and that allows me to basically hop over to that site collection and see that document library. Now, another thing that you'll see when you're working with OneDrive, I can go look at this document inside of its library, and what it's going to do is it's bringing me over to Tommy Ryan's, which is the person that Elon is connected with, and I can see Tommy Ryan's content, and I can see the shared with everyone. So I can see a couple documents and folders that I can navigate through. Right now, I'm basically over in Tommy Ryan's OneDrive location. To get back, I'm going to have to go back and launch it and get back into OneDrive. So let's look at a couple other things that you want to do. Now, one of the things that you're going to have to do is sync this. I've already synced it. To get these files to show up in your local file system, you go to sync it. It's going to prompt you to install the sync client. You install that sync client, and then you'll be off and running. That sync client is down here. You've got the ability to manage some of this synchronization. If you're not seeing a document, you can force a sync. If you're in an area you've got low bandwidth, you don't want to chew it up with synchronization, you can pause it, and you can go, basically stop a certain folder from syncing, so you can get rid of that synchronization. Another thing, so this will sync your OneDrive folder, and that OneDrive folder, let me show that again to you. It's this OneDrive-ThreeWill. To sync, this SharePoint folder, I'm going to go over to SharePoint and hop over to the people site and open up this documents library. And I click the sync here. So it looks exactly the same. And after I click the sync, it brings me through just a few dialogues to confirm you want to sync it. And then you're going to be able to find a replicate of all this content. So it looks almost exactly the same as when you're in OneDrive. And so whatever document library you have access to, you can go and sync. So I'm going to show you a couple other things. I'm going to show you how to access your OneDrive in composing email. So I'm in Outlook Web Access. I'm creating a new email, and I'm going to send it to myself. So I'm going to share a document, and when I go to share that document, notice it brings me to my OneDrive. These are some recent files that I've uploaded to OneDrive. So if I know I'm working on something, I need to share it with somebody, and I want to email it because I want to have a nicely formatted message to send it off to them, then I can go and send that off through selecting it here. I can look at content that's shared with me, so that PowerPoint, I've got access to that, so I can send this as an attachment or send it as a link. And then I can go into my local hard drive, and here I've got this secret sauce document. Okay, when I upload that document, I can decide, do I just want to send it as an attachment? But you've got this nice little feature to be able to send it as an attachment and have a copy in OneDrive, or send it as an attachment and send a link. So here, I've got this sent through OneDrive, and this is going to be a link back to this document. And when I send that off, I want to go back and show you what has changed in OneDrive. We've got this special folder inside of my OneDrive called email attachments. And anything that I send, and I want to send a link to it to collaborate with, it shows up in this folder. And notice it's shared with somebody. And if I click on this, you'll see it's shared with Tommy. And that's because he was on the email distribution. If I added Danny on the email distribution, you'd see his name there too. So it's tracking who has permissions back into this. That could be someone external or someone internal to your organization. In this case, it's someone internal to the organization. So this is a place you go. This is a special folder that gets created for you if you start attaching documents by sending a link to the OneDrive location. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but let's show putting content up into OneDrive. So here's my OneDrive folder. I'm going to go to my downloads, and let's say this Hyperloop overview. I want to put that up into my OneDrive. Drag and drop it. I see that it's moved up to this location. Maybe I want to delete it because I don't want it sitting in the downloads anymore. I want to be managing it through OneDrive. So there's my next big idea folder. You see there's some synchronization occurring. The little icon here had a little blue sync icon. And now I can see that overview document. And as I make changes to that, in this case it's an image, maybe I upload a new image on top of it, the same name, it gets synced and possibly versioned if you turn that on. One other thing I want to show you before we start wrapping up here is the ability to manipulate your document library that's in OneDrive. So if you want to have some of the special features that you're used to kind of managing on documents and SharePoint sites, you have that same ability within OneDrive. So I can go to Site Contents, and this is that document library, and I can go to Settings. And for those that are familiar with SharePoint and configuring SharePoint, here's something that looks very, very familiar. It's your document settings that you have, so I can turn on versioning, I can set up check-in, check-out, I can set up draft security, I can set up workflows, I can start adding column metadata to this by adding additional columns if I want to have some special metadata that's unique to how I want to track my information. So you could create another column called comments, and you can have it as a visual column that's side by side with the document. All right, so Danny, I don't know if you have any questions that have come up. I'm going to hop back over to the PowerPoint and
Tommy,
just show a wrap-up slide.
Sure. Yeah, there's a question I think I've been able to answer, which is about the sync. It just automatically running. You don't have to click the manual sync for it to work. Yeah.
No, that's running all the
Yeah.
time. And one thing to keep in mind is you also want to keep keep an eye on it. Let me stop this. If you look at this, when you make changes, you'll see a little progress indicator below it. I'm not syncing anything now, but you'll see that when it's actually doing syncing. And then one of the things you might do with this sync now is, this sync service is trying to be smart about not constantly running a sync. So if you have put a document up there, you don't see it yet, at times I've actually, forced the sync. And that's probably the only time I hit that sync now.
If there's any other questions out there, feel free to ask. If not, hey, love ending early. Give a couple 15 minutes back to people. That'd be great.
Yeah, we love that. So, just to wrap up, this link brings you, if you're interested in trying out OneDrive and you don't have it today and you want to use OneDrive for Business, it comes in a flavor where you can get it on its own if you just want that. Now, I'd say probably you want to get some of the basics of Office 365 and take advantage of that. And plans start at I think it's $5 per user, and that is a great for 1 terabyte of space, and then all the other things that are going to come with that subscription. It's a really solid offering.
Hey, Tom.
And so this link will bring you. Yes.
We just had a quick question about what version of Office does this pertain to for OneDrive for Business?
So I know. So Windows 7 and above, and I have not tried this on earlier versions. Everything that I've seen has been Windows 7 and above. Now,
it's for Office. Sorry, Tommy, not Windows. Microsoft Office. Sorry.
Okay, so it depends on how you're looking at this. There is some integration with the back office. If I look at PowerPoint and I go to look at this, this back office, and I say save as, this capability, I believe, is only 2013 for Office to save directly into OneDrive. Can't quote me on that. I'm not sure for certain, but there's no reason that if you have an older version of Office that you can't just copy it into your OneDrive location. This image, I manually put it into OneDrive, and I get all the goodness of OneDrive. So, and to have it integrated in the Save As, I think that's 2013, but I'd have to validate.
And the earlier, I guess this sort of comes back to the earlier versions of this were actually Groove, it was a product that Microsoft bought, which was Groove, which turned into SharePoint Workspace, which turned into SkyDrive Pro, which turned into OneDrive for Business. So I think if you're using earlier versions of Office, you're going to be using a different product than OneDrive. But OneDrive is primarily the one that works with Office 2013.
So, and here's my email address and my Twitter handle. If you want to know for sure and you can't find out what version of Office it supports, I can help you out there. Also, that's our blog. We put amazing amount of work into that. That's Danny's baby there, and he does a great job at making sure we're always putting out valuable content. You'll see, usually once a week, a pretty nice blog out there that shares our experiences that we're seeing with building collaborative apps. We have a Twitter handle for the company, and also we have an innovation group called ThreeWill Labs, where we're trying new things, and so that's a good Twitter handle to follow also. And this last link brings you to our calendar. So if you go to threewill.com/calendar, you'll see this event plus other events that we have. And then coming in up next month is a really nice live event that we're going to have at the Microsoft office, where we're going to, it's right down here, It's on February 20th, and we're going to be at Sanctuary Park at the Microsoft office. And we're doing something that we did in our office back in October of last year, and it was talking about Office 365 and Azure, the new business operating system. We've got a white paper that we did on this late last year, and we had so many people that wanted to attend that couldn't attend due to one conflict or the other, and we still had about 50 people here at the office. And it went well. It was well received, and the nice thing about this event is we have some of the most innovative people using SharePoint and Azure on our panel. And we have one part where we give you a nice little high points of the white paper and how people are moving to the cloud and how they do that on their own terms. And then we have a panel that's open up to the audience to really share their experiences with kind of these hybrid solutions that are out there today. So I'd love to see you out there if you can make it. It's February 20th in the morning.
That's great. Thank you, Tommy, for sharing your experiences here with OneDrive for Business, and thanks for inviting folks to that event. It's one of the great things about it is the panel. We'll have folks from Atlanta Braves, Ernst & Young, Jackson Healthcare, McKesson. So it's really, that's my favorite part of the event is hearing from the panel. So we'd love to have, if you're in the Atlanta area, we'd love to have you out. So again, thank you, Tommy, for taking the time to share this with everyone. And thank you, everybody, for joining today. Thanks a lot. And look for the follow-up email. And if there's any other questions, you've got Tommy's contact information. And really appreciate everyone coming out to this event. Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.